Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with Part 6, Entered Apprentice Degree Continued, from Symbolism of the Three Degrees by Oliver Day Street, Part 1, The Entered Apprentice Degree. Wisdom, Strength, and Beauty. We are told in our monitors that our institution is supported by three great pillars: wisdom, strength, and beauty, because there should be wisdom to contrive, strength to support, and beauty to adorn all great and important undertakings. The lodge whose members are characterized by wisdom to plan with judgment, strength to resist evil tendencies and influences, and by the beauty of brotherly love and charity is sure to prosper. Nothing more is needed to give success. Truly may it be said that these three attributes support our institution, and with equal truth, may it be said that they support all other institutions and creations. Infinite wisdom planned and formed this universe. Omnipotent strength hurls the sun, the universe, the moon, the stars, through space at speeds we cannot conceive, and yet holds each in its accustomed orbit, with such inerrancy that astronomers can now calculate the position of each thousand of years hence, while a beauty which poets have for ages in vain attempted to express completes the work. In short, wisdom, strength, and beauty sum up the universe in three words. Wisdom, strength, and beauty make a perfect building. There must be wisdom to plan and execute. This gives to the structure convenience and utility. There must be strength to support. This gives to the building firmness and durability. There must be beauty to adorn. This gives that which pleases and appeals to man's moral and aesthetic taste. There may be wisdom and strength, but without beauty the result is, as has been truly observed, mere construction or at most a piece of engineering. It may be admired, even wonderful, but without beauty it is not architecture. There may be beauty, but if there is not wisdom of plan and execution, or if there be not strength to resist the process of decay, the result is a disappointment. Who that visited the Chicago Exposition in 1893 and viewed that dream of beauty was not saddened by the thought that there was no strength there? These three essentials of architecture, Vitruvius, the noted architect who flourished shortly before Christ, enumerates as firmitas, utilitas, venustas, which is to say stability, utility, and beauty. So of man, wisdom, strength, and beauty make a perfect man. How often have we said with a sigh, that is a beautiful woman, or that is a beautiful character, but there is neither wisdom nor strength. This beauty may be so great as to be lovely, or be even admired, but there is no perfection. On the other hand, how sad, how inexpressibly sad, when we behold a man with a great mind and a great body, and yet no beauty of character, a soul in which there is selfishness instead of sympathy, cruelty instead of kindness, hate and bitterness instead of love and charity. When to beauty of heart and person and character, you add wisdom to plan and strength to execute, weighing down all evil opposition, we have what may truly be called the noblest work of God. Nothing can be added to wisdom, strength, and beauty in either a building or in a man, unless it be more wisdom, more strength, and greater beauty. Wisdom and beauty early became subjects of philosophical study and disquisition. Among the Greeks, wisdom was regarded as the knowledge of the cause and origin of things. Among the Jews, it was regarded as knowing how to live in order to get the greatest possible good out of this life. Neither Greek nor Hebrew philosophy seems to have concerned itself greatly about a future life. This subject was productive among the Jews of the Book of Wisdom, which has been pronounced by Dr. Crawford H. Toy as the most brilliant production of pre-Christian Hebrew philosophical thought. The Greeks boasted a vast body of wisdom literature, as it is called. So beauty gave rise to a body of philosophical thought called aesthetics. The earliest writers on this subject, as on so many others, were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates took the contrary view on each point. Aristotle made great advance on both and defined certain essential elements of beauty, which have since been generally accepted. All agree that the purest of our pleasures arise from the contemplation of the beautiful and that the effect is chastening and elevating. Freemasonry combines this philosophy with both the Greek and the Hebrew ideas of wisdom as a topic worthy of philosophical study. With us, as we shall see in the third degree, the conception of wisdom is extended beyond what either the Greeks or Hebrews understood by it, and embraces the search for knowledge of the future. Strength was greatly prized by the Jews as well as the Greeks and Romans, and among them was regarded as one of the attributes of deity. Both Samuel and Joel acclaimed Jehovah as the strength of Israel. Job 12:13 declares, "With him is wisdom and strength," while David, Psalms 106:6, sings, "Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary." But the preacher, Ecclesiastes 9:16, with a truer appreciation declares that wisdom is better than strength. Examples could be multiplied indefinitely from the Old Bible of the high esteem in which the Jews held these three Masonic qualities. The covering of the lodge. The covering of the lodge is said to be a clouded canopy or starry-decked heaven. The appropriateness of this symbol is striking when we regard the lodge as emblematic of the world, for such is literally at all times the covering of the earth. Equally true, in the literal sense, was this description when lodges were held in the open air, as we are assured and as seems probable they were. In the earliest temples erected by man for the worship of God, there was no roof, the only covering being the sky. To them also this description holds good. This fact may give additional point and meaning to the statement that our lodges extend from earth to heaven. Later, when temples were covered and our lodges began to be held in closed rooms, it was customary to decorate the ceiling with a blue canopy spangled with stars. This starry-decked heaven, when now exhibited in our lodge rooms, either on the ceiling or on our charts, or master's carpets, is obviously reminiscent of the real canopy of heaven with which anciently our lodges were in fact covered, and is symbolically of that abode of the blessed which is universally regarded as located in the sky. The ornaments of the lodge. The ornaments of the lodge are the mosaic pavement, the indented tessel, and the blazing star, that is to say its floor, the margin thereof, and the stars with which its ceilings are or should be decorated. Does this symbolism hold good when applied to the earth? It does most perfectly. To the beholder, the visible part of the earth appears as surface, horizon, and sky. The surface of the earth, if viewed above, checkered with fields and forests, mountains and plains, hills and valleys, land and waters, would be found to look very much like a pavement of mosaic work. A few miles up, it would seem almost as delicate. The horizon, that mysterious region that separates land and sky, earth and heaven, where the heavenly bodies appear and disappear, with its inexpressible charms and numberless beauties, has in all ages been a source of mystery and inspiration to the poets. It is fitly typified by the splendor borders which surround the floors of some of our most magnificent buildings, and which is fabled to have surrounded the floor of Solomon's temple, while the firmament above, studded with stars by night and the blazing sun by day, completes the ornamental scheme of the earth. The surface, the horizon, the firmament embraces all of visible beauty of nature there is, and they have never yet been exhausted by poet, painter, or singer. Opinions have differed much whether the blazing star, classed as one of the ornaments of the lodge, alludes to the sun or some particular star, or to the heavenly bodies in general. It has an ancient and interesting symbolism, with which the statement of our monitors that it hieroglyphically represents divine providence is in substantial accord. The three great lights. If we read discerningly the explanation given of these in our lectures and ceremonies, we must perceive that they symbolize, respectively, 1. The Bible symbolized the Word of God, not merely that disclosed in His revealed Word, but including also the knowledge which we acquire from the great book of nature. 2. The square typifies the rule of right conduct. And 3. The compasses is an emblem of that self-restraint which enables us on all occasions to act accordingly to this rule of right, beyond a perfect knowledge of God's word and therefore of the rule of right living. Nothing is needed to make the perfect man except a perfect self-restraint. The value and importance of self-restraint is thus portrayed by Brother Albert Pike. The Hermetic Masters said, "Make gold potable and you will have the universal medicine." By this they meant to say, appropriate truth to your use. Let it be the spring from which you shall drink all your days, and you will have in yourself the immortality of the sages. Temperance, tranquility of the soul, simplicity of the character, the calmness and reason of the will, make man not only happy, but well and strong. It is by making himself rational and good that man makes himself immortal. We are authors of our own destinies, and God does not have to save us without our cooperation. The three lesser lights. Equally appropriate is the symbolism of the three lesser lights. It was literally true of our ancient operative brethren, that from the sun and moon they obtained all that natural light which rendered possible those great architectural creations, some of which still remain as perpetual sources of wonder and delight. But all this skill must have quickly perished from the earth had not the master communicated to the apprentice from generation to generation the mental illumination which kept alive the knowledge of architecture. Thus literally were the sun, moon, and worshipful master lights to our ancient operative brethren. But as a knowledge of architecture is less than knowledge of God, as the correct rule of building is less than the correct rule of life, as the restraints imposed upon the structure is less important than the restraints imposed upon oneself, so are the sun, moon, and worshipful master less important lights than are the Bible, square, and compasses, when rightly understood. To the untutored mind, the sun was the most striking object in nature. His daily march across the heavens must to those who did not know that his motion was only apparent, have been far more impressive than to us. Add to these his enlightening and fructifying influences, which must have been apparent to man even in his rudest stages of development, and we are not surprised that the orb of day became in all countries an object of worship. The point of his daily appearance, the east; his station at mid-hour, the south; the quarter of his departure, at night, the west, could not fail to become objects of special significances. He seemed to shun the north, whence it became in popular opinion a place of darkness. It is obvious that conceptions like these belong to a past age, and yet they contribute to the completion of that allegory of the world and human life which we know as Freemasonry. Of scarcely less interest to man in all ages have been the moon and the stars. Little less striking and even more beautiful are they. The gorgeous orbs of day and night have not yet lost their power to stir thoughts of divinity in the human mind, as witness Joseph Addison's beautiful words: "The spacious firmament on high, with all the blue ethereal sky, and spangled heavens, a shining frame, their great original proclaim. The unwearied sun from day to day does his Creator's power display, and publishes to every land the work of an almighty hand. Soon as the evening shades prevail, the moon takes up the wondrous tale, and nightly to the listening earth repeats the story of her birth, while all the stars that round her burn, and all the planets in their turn, confirm the tidings as they roll, and spread the truth from pole to pole. What though in solemn silence all move round the dark terrestrial ball? What though no real voice nor sound amid the radiant orbs be found? In reason's ear they all rejoice, and utter forth a glorious voice, forever singing as they shine. The hand that made us is divine." Nature. Allusions to the sun, the moon, the stars, the firmament, the horizon, the earth, the seas, the rivers, the mountains, the valleys, so frequent in our ritual, are designed to tempt us to a study of nature. We hardly yet realize its possibilities as sources of elevating and useful knowledge. Only ignorance would decry a study of nature as a bountiful manifestation of God's revelation of himself. The theologian who would deny his followers the right to draw from the great book of nature conclusions as to the attributes and characteristics of deity is narrow and ignorant in the extreme. In one of the higher degrees of Masonry, we are told, nature is the primary, consistent, and certain revelation of God. It is his utterance, word, and speech. Whether he speaks to us through a man must depend even at first upon human testimony and afterward on hearsay and tradition. But in and by his work we know the deity. The visible is the manifestation of the invisible. The man who denies God is as fanatical as he who defines him with pretended infallibility. God is ordinarily defined by expressing everything that he is not. Man makes God by an analogy from the less to the greater. The result is that his concept of God is always that of an infinite man, who makes of man a finite God. The work of God is the book of God, and in what he writes we ought to see the expression of his thought and consequently of his being, since we conceive of him as the supreme thought. These quotations from the Scottish Rite degrees are not taken because Scottish Rite Masonry teaches anything different from Blue Masonry, but only as powerful and beautiful delineations by the great Mason, Albert Pike, of what is taught in the three symbolic degrees. Masonry does not profess to be able to explain what nature teaches. It recognizes that nature does not speak the same language to all men. It simply invites, urges, yes, challenges every intelligent human being to a study of nature. It recognizes that no rational, sincere man can make an earnest study of nature in any of her varied aspects without having his own mind and soul elevated from a contemplation of the immensities of the universe as revealed by the telescope and mathematics. One man will imbibe a lesson of modesty and humility. Another may be inspired with an ennobling sense of the limitless possibilities of the human mind, that it should be able to project itself and solve the problems of billions of miles away. Science estimates the extent of the known universe in quadrillions of miles, a space so vast the mind can form no conception of it whatever. A ray of light traveling at the rate of 186,000 miles per second, starting hundreds of years before Christ lived at one side of the universe, and traveling continuously until this moment, would still lack billions of miles of completing the journey from one extremity to the other. Throughout this vast immensity, at inconceivable distances from each other, are millions of heavenly bodies of all sizes, from that of a grain of sand to a sphere so large that if its center were placed at the center of the earth, its radius would extend far beyond the sun, all flying through space at enormous velocities, and yet all held by invisible hands in fixed orbits. Can any book of Revelation more unmistakably reveal God? Truly did the psalmist sing, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor knowledge. Their voice is not heard, but their line is gone out through all the world, and their words to the end of the world." Psalms 19, 1-4. And again when he says, "When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained. What is man, that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man, that thou visitest him." Psalms 8, 3-4. Every student of astronomy, if he has not asked this question, has felt it. Again the psalmist exclaims that Jehovah has sat his glory upon the heavens. Psalms 8:1. And the singer promises, "I will show forth all thy marvelous works." Psalm 9:1. And declares that the earth is full of the loving kindness of Jehovah. Psalms 33:5. Let the Mason read Brother Sidney T. Klein's address before Quattro Quarnati Lodge of London, entitled The Great Symbol, and let him behold the astonishing revelations disclosed by the telescope and the science of astronomy. If by the telescope he reads the wonders of the immense, let him turn to the microscope and study the infinitely small. If the discoveries of the skies are astonishing, those of the microscope are no less so and no less valuable. Among the latest discoveries of science is that the atom, once so familiar to the schoolboy, is not the ultimate in littleness, as it was once supposed to be. The electrons, which are now held to make up atoms, have diameters estimated at inconceivable minuteness of 16th 100th trillionths of an inch. Varying numbers of these electrons, not touching another, but relatively as far from one another as the heavenly bodies are from one another, form atoms. In other words, each atom is an infinitesimal universe in itself. The microscope also shows a drop of water or a grain of earth to be a living universe. Then study the ant, the germs of disease, the varied manifestations of force, the phenomena of music, heat, light, electricity, and the perfect laws by which these are all governed. Then behold man, the marvelous mechanism of his body, the senses of hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, and tasting, the perfect action through a long life of the hundreds of his bodily functions, the stoppage of any one of which is certain death. Then consider his mind, his feelings, his affections, his passions, his appetites, his reason, and finally his spiritual nature. Cease taking the things around you for granted as does the ox, having eyes. See the beauties, the grandeurs, the wealth of nature. Brother Albert Pike devotes more than 1/4 of his great work, Morals and Dogma, to this subject, but he does not undertake to tell us what nature teaches. He does not even essay to tell us what he has learned from her. He only rehearses for us what men in all ages and all countries have thought that they learned from her. Modern science has rendered most of this learning obsolete, but it affords a striking story of the efforts of the wisest and best of mankind to catch the message which nature has to convey. If the earnest seeker catches it only imperfectly or even loses it altogether, the high resolve, the noble purpose is not lost. No one can communicate with nature without becoming a better man, and it is absurd for a man to talk of knowing God who knows nothing of his work. It is the study of subjects like these that Masonry challenges us. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.